The Cutoff tool in 3D Code Sculpt Workspace works both in voxel mode and in surface mode to do as the name implies, to cut through an object. However, you can set a depth limit if you want to cut into the object partially. Let me zoom in on the tail end here, and I want to trim part of this away using the Cutoff tool. You could use the shape marquees here. As I mentioned with the depth limit, you could check that if you want to cut in part of the way. The only caveat with this is it's a little bit hit and miss. You may have to try multiple times to get the limit that you want. There is another tool that will allow you to cut based on a plane, and that is the plane brush. So it's sort of like the Cutoff tool, but it works a little bit differently. There's a video that covers that in more detail. Again, with the Cutoff tool, you can limit it, but under most circumstances, depth limit is unchecked, and you're just going to cut all the way through with one of those shape marquees. Let's zoom in, and I want to trim this part away. I want to make sure I'm on the right layer, and I'll hit the E key to bring the E panel to my cursor. I'll choose the closed spline, and I want to trim with a little bit of curvature. And as you may know, you have different point types when using this curve. You have a standard spline that has curvature that runs through the point, and then you have a B-spline, which is quite a bit smoother because you can see it's weighted based on the angle. Let's hit Escape to drop the initial creation of the spline. You can cycle between them by right-clicking, as you can see. So I'll do that here. I'll right-click. I can hover over any one of these and edit them after the fact. You have this little toggle that gives you options. You can detach it from the surface, you can make it attached to the surface and so on, but I'm not going to go too far into that. One thing to note is when you're using a spline, we need to hit the Enter key in order to apply it. So I've done that. I can save the spline for later use if I need by going here and choosing Save and then load it later. All right, I'll go ahead and hit Escape. Another option is to invert the cut by holding the Shift key, not the Control key, but the Shift key when you're using the Cutoff tool. So let's say I want to cut everything outside this circle. I want to hold down the Shift key and release my mouse. Let me undo. And let's turn symmetry off. So yeah, I will drag select, hold the Shift key and release. You can see how I cut everything else outside of this circle. I'll undo. Now let me switch to surface mode, and I want to show one last thing about the Cutoff tool that's quite unique. And that is this tool in surface mode will create extremely sharp edges. And it does that by adding dynamic tessellation along the edges of a cut. So let me use this polygonal lasso. Okay, so when I zoom in, you can see how sharp that is, even if I have a relatively low polygon model here. Let's turn wireframe on. And as I zoom in, you can see, go into orthographic view, I can get a little bit closer. I zoom in. You can see that it applies dynamic tessellation along the edges. It may not be all that easy to see, but it does. And that's how you get extremely sharp edges, even if the model is relatively low poly. Okay, so I'm going to undo. And that's a quick look at the Cutoff tool in 3D Code. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.